What is going on, everyone? This is Nick from Comic Culture. We're going to do Nick at Night, the comic book review show where we go over the books we read this past week in a non-spoilery way. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. So welcome back, everyone. It's time for Nick at Night. Let's get into it with the big two. We're going to start off with Inferno by Hickman. So we've been looking forward to this book for quite some time now. I know I read Hoxpox and then I didn't read Hickman's run on the X-Men. I have a couple issues that I'm probably going to read just to kind of get reoriented back into it. But I'm super excited to get back into the Hickman world of the X-Men because it's kind of severely lacking right now. So this book is actually really, really interesting if you're into the whole Hoxpox lore, if you want to get kind of caught up on some of those books or flip through a couple of those issues. I'm hearing issue 6 and issue 20 are good ones to kind of get refreshed on prior to getting into this one. This one's more about, it's more about Moira, the conversations that she's having with Charles and Magneto about Destiny, kind of about the future plans. There's just so many cool things happening in this book. And so I really don't want to kind of spoil this for anybody that's been looking forward to reading this. But if you're into the whole Moira thing, if you're into, her past lives and her resurrection and things like that, I think you're going to really enjoy this book. Kind of get refreshed on a few of the issues of his X-Men run, though, to kind of get an understanding of where we're going to start off in this book. So I'm going to do that after reading it and probably give this one another read just to kind of get back into it some more. So I'm really looking forward to the future issues of Inferno in here. The art is absolutely gorgeous in here. I'm going to flash a panel so you can see it. So it's that classic art that we're used to seeing over in Hoxpox. So I really, really do enjoy that. It's just kind of breathtaking. Cool little homages to the previous run over in House of X, Powers of X. So really, really enjoyed this. If you're into the Hickman stuff, if you liked Hoxpox, go ahead and pick this one up. You won't regret it. From Marvel, pretty good book. Going on to Thor issue number 17, Donny Cates. So if you've been following this series, we kind of hop from a Donald Blake story arc into an arc where Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, is actually getting heavy. He doesn't quite understand why. He thinks that it has maybe something to do with the fact that maybe his time as the Asgardian hammer is kind of over. And it's time for him to kind of more focus on being a king. So he's trying to maybe kind of figure out what that means, seeking the help of other people, Captain America, the Avengers, hearing what they think, things like that. So right now he's kind of on his way to go see Odin to kind of figure out what's going on there. If he has any insight for this, he's been king of Asgard forever, it seems like. And so he's kind of traveling around. We get some cool little surprises, some cameos for some characters I did not see coming. So, props to Cates for bringing in some people we haven't seen a lot lately. But this issue, I don't know, it was kind of a letdown. I preferred the previous issue, and that one was not much better. So I'm not entirely sure where this book is going. I think we have a cool concept with Thor trying to make a decision on whether or not he wants to be Asgard's hammer or king. And so can you be both? Can you not be both? What are the rules around that? There's some classic Cates things in here. There's some classic full panels of just absurdness that you kind of either love or hate. And I think this kind of falls more on the gimmicky side than the love side, if you're into that kind of stuff. And so, it was okay. It was a decent issue. Nothing to write home about. Thor number 17. We'll see where he goes from there. That is actually it for the Marvel books. I only got 2 this week, which is okay. I think I picked up a few more. Actually, I picked up a couple DC books. Going to DC, we're going to Robin number 6. I love the B covers because they're all character spotlights, every single issue. I think I inadvertently did this on issue number 1, thinking, oh yeah, that's a cool cover. And then I noticed, 2 and 3 and 4, they all have these character spotlights. So that's going to be a really cool set to throw up. So Robin. So we are hanging out in Mortal Kombat Island still, as I like to call it. It's a pretty self-contained run so far. So if you're not into the whole Gotham Fear State thing, you're pretty safe so far with this book. So we have Damian. He's over at Mortal Kombat Island with a bunch of other warriors. It's kind of far-fetched because not a lot of people know that this tournament exists. And all of a sudden we have all these younger kids out there trying to participate in this tournament, right? And so from my understanding it's like a very, very elusive thing. No one's really supposed to know about it, yet everybody seems to know about it. All the descendants of all these great warriors that are in the Batman realm seem to know about this, which is kind of weird. Anyways, you're going to have to kind of take it for what it's worth. I think the story up until an issue ago or so was actually fairly solid, if you want to call it that. So I think it was really interesting how, Damien's interacting with these other characters and the other characters' motives. They have these like multiple lives. It's like a video game over there. You can die 2 or 3 times and maybe twice, and it's perfectly fine. But if you die the last time, if you die the third time, you're dead, right? So the last few issues have been building up to the tournament. This is the issue where the tournament actually begins. And they planted the seeds a little bit about maybe ulterior motives of the people running this whole tournament. And so, I mean, of course they're going to be wrong. They're going to be bad, right? Of course they're going to be, doing this for their own gain somehow. So this issue really kind of leans into that a little bit more. Damien's more trying to figure out, what are the motives behind the people running this whole thing. And so, of course, the end kind of gets you a little bit of a cliffhanger. He finds out some information and stuff like that. So I'm not going to ruin some of the matchups and the battles, but they're pretty interesting. And some of the action's pretty fun and things like that. But this book, they're starting to head in a different direction. They kind of went to hey, it's a Mortal Kombat Island. It's a fight to the death. Now it's kind of more like hey, what are these hosts, these people? What are they up to? And so it's going to turn into a mystery thing. I anticipate they're going to all kind of find out what the ulterior motives are. And they're all going to probably have to team up eventually and take this on, whatever this threat is. And, of course, they're going to have some people that are willing to be allies and some people that are probably going to not want to be allies, and they're going to have to fight them as well. That's my guess going forward. And I think that's a pretty safe guess. And I mean, I'm not entirely sure how else you're going to play this series out, but I don't know. Robin number 6, not that bad. It's not quite going in the direction I thought it was going to go, but, that's okay. Speaking of a book going in a direction I didn't think it was going to go, we have Son of Kal-El, issue number 3. This is from Tom Taylor. Tim's on the art, and I will say I enjoy the art. So let me try to flash a page. So this is a generic Superman saves the town kind of a page. So, we have Jonathan, and we have Superman essentially saving a building, saving people inside of a building that's collapsing. And so you have your typical, scene there, right? Little introduction. We were kind of promised a little bit of not really promised, but we were shown a possible future for Jonathan. And we didn't quite know what he was going to be growing up to be. Is he going to be growing up to be pure like his dad? Is he going to grow up and be this like threat, the opposite, right? The opposite of Superman. And so we got that in Infinite Frontier issue 0. And then I was excited about this run because I felt like we're going to kind of head in that direction. Now, we might be, but he's a young teenager in a world where maybe a lot of like social media kind of gets to him, right? And so he's like pulling out a cell phone and like following this like blogger who's blogging about some kind of, all these social things going on in the world, which is cool. But it's like, it's not, I don't quite relate to it. And, it's just kind of like, I don't really care about this just yet. But what's interesting is they're kind of tying it into something that makes it a little bit more interesting to me, which is he rescues these refugees. The country they're fleeing from has kind of this evil ruler, this like dictator over this country. And I think he's trying to target Jonathan specifically to kind of get him all riled up. And he's found a pretty creative way with using this other character to kind of do that. And so towards the end of this book, you see what his plan is. And we're going to see if it kind of triggers him. Because it's like that old saying, everyone's kind of a maniac. All we need is just one bad day. And I think this guy's really trying to push that one bad day on Jonathan. And so we'll see if his plan is working right here. This book is a tie-in to Action Comics. I think there's some stuff that happens in Action Comics that directly relates to this issue here. So, it's got a pretty dramatic ending in this book right here. Maybe this is going to kind of tilt it in the direction I thought it was going to go in the beginning, which is what maybe get this book. It took 3 issues to kind of head in that direction, maybe. So we'll see what issue 4 brings. Not entirely bad. Started off first issue was really good. Second issue threw me off. Third issue is kind of, maybe pointing it back in the right direction, I think. We'll see. We'll see what issue number 4 brings. All right, that's it for the big 2. We're going to go over to Boom Studios with Berserker, number 5, Keanu Reeves, Kent, on this book right here. I feel like I haven't read a Berserker book in a long time. Foil covers are always great. Been loving these. This one, there's some things I like about it, and there's some things I don't. So we're still trying to uncover more about his memory, right? He's been alive forever. I'm going to assume you understand the basic premise of the book. Essentially, we have this person who's been alive forever. He was kind of born out of a ritual that was done back in like caveman era, right? And then he was kind of born out of this ritual, and he's been this like weapon of war since then for thousands and thousands of years, if not a million years or whatever the timeline is. So we learned more about his origin and what happened to his initial family in the last issue, which was pretty cool. They're trying to make this book not just like a gore fest kind of a book, which I really appreciate. You got to have some interesting stories, some plot, some character development, things like that. And it's hard to develop a character in a few issues who's been alive for thousands of years. I feel like it's like, what is he going to learn in the time that passed in these issues that he hasn't already learned over the million years of existence? So he's working with a company that's trying to explore his past, like psychiatrists and psychologists and things like that. And there's this other company who's kind of has maybe nefarious things going on, right? They're trying to use him. I don't know if they're trying to replicate his power, trying to understand where he came from, his origin, stuff like that. But anyways, this issue here focuses on his relationship with his therapist a little bit more, which is the enlightening and confusing part. I'm not sure if there's a love interest there. I think she's willing to kind of go as far as he needs to go to be more open with her. I think she's just kind of open to all kind of suggestions, which is really, really odd. This issue kind of dives into what that's been like historically for him, a love interest, right? So he's been around for millions of years. He's had many different love interests, and he kind of shows how that has ended for him, historically speaking, how it's ended for him and how it's ended for the woman that he's fallen in love with. So it kind of walks you through time after time after time after time of this happening, which is pretty interesting. So you kind of understand how closed he might be because of the outcome of all these different relationships. If you live kind of forever, you watch everybody around you be born, grow up, and die, just over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who it is because you're the only person who's immortal. So, they're running these different experiments on him, trying to get some more information about his past, and they're trying to like extract something from him via these machines and chemicals they're using on him. And so this group that's trying to do it, we don't quite understand their motivations just yet. We can only assume they're trying to replicate the power of some kind, perhaps to build like a giant army, because that's what he's kind of used for on the side. And so, we get a little bit of information about that, and we get a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end about, did they extract what they need to successfully complete the mission? So, we'll figure out mission number 6 perhaps, but this one was really cool from a character perspective. I think the art is great. I think it's moving when it needs to be, and it's just not complete gore with no substance. So, Berserker, not too bad. Not too bad of an issue. There's a couple downers here and there, but we're on 5 issues right now, and it's a pretty solid series so far. Going into another Boom book, this is Something Is Killing the Children, issue number 20, with that awesome, teenage right out of, or right into the mix, Erica Slaughter here. It's pretty cool. This has been a really fun run. So this is basically Erica's initiation into the House of Slaughter. So if you ever tried to wonder, you got all these different masks. There's white ones. There's ones without teeth. There's ones with teeth. How do you get into this whole thing? So, the first few arcs or first couple arcs were more about her saving the town, saving the children, solving the monster problem over there. The different people from the house kind of come in and help however they can. And now this is a deep dive into how the house actually works. Who's who, what the masks mean, different factions of this whole organization. This really reminds me of John Wick with the round table and everything, or the high table, I think they call it. There's different factions all over the place. Everybody has their certain purpose or their certain function, things like that in this whole society. And you kind of have to work your way up. You kind of have to earn your colors, right? Earn your teeth, in other words. So there's a whole initiation, which is the chance of success is very, very small. But Eric is kind of equipped naturally with this personality, with this deductive reasoning, with this perceptiveness, right? That makes her complete the initiation. So it's a story. The last issue is more about that. This issue is more about an explainer of, hey, you kind of made it through. Let me kind of walk you through what this whole thing means, right? All these different groups. So it's really, really cool. So it really kind of opens the door to almost infinite possibilities. This guy, Tynan, can take this into 1,000 different directions with 1,000 different books because of the world that he's kind of set up here. So that was really, really cool. There's a lot of cool character moments with the dragon, which is kind of like the leader of this house, and Erica here, and he kind of explains to her, why she actually made it through, or how she made it through with the kind of personality she might have. And she kind of embraces and fears that at the same time, because this guy's kind of a bad dude. What's really cool is at the end, we get a little tease of House of Slaughter, which is going to come out at the end of October. And I'm pretty psyched about that, because the more they open this world up, the more I'm enjoying it. It doesn't feel hokey. It feels natural. After watching movies like John Wick and kind of appreciating that kind of world building, something like this makes total sense. And I think it's going to be a really, really fun ride. So I'm really looking forward to it. So Something is Killing the Children, another great issue. Issue number 20. Looking forward to the rest of them, and House of Slaughter. So that's it for Boom. Going over to Vault. We have Human Remains, Peter Milligan. So this book is interesting. It's essentially, and I don't know if there's any kind of political or social thing laid on top of this, but essentially, if you show too much emotion, this is the basic plot of the book. If you show too much emotion, positive, negative, excitement, sadness, anything in the open, in public, at a certain volume or whatever, a portal will open up and a monster will come out and it will rip you in pieces. I'm talking about rip you right in pieces. And it'll be a huge bloody mess. And so it makes everybody completely control their emotions, right? So it's an emotionless world. It happens worldwide, and they kind of go over the moment it kind of happened, and it kind of spotlights all different parts of the world and what it meant when this kind of happened in those areas. And so we don't really have any kind of character focus yet. We started off with this older man. We kind of got introduced to the concept, and now we kind of focus more on this younger couple during their wedding, and all hell kind of breaks loose over there. So I'm not sure if these two on the cover are going to be our main characters going forward, because they spend about half the book on them, I'd say, or maybe more. But we don't really know much about them. We just know that they're kind of an unlikely couple, based on their own dialogue inside of here. And they were married, and during their wedding, kind of all hell broke loose. So I think it's more of a flashback, because they didn't know this stuff existed then. So in the beginning of the book, we have more of a present day. This is more of a flashback. Maybe these guys are going to be our main characters going forward. The monster itself, the design, I don't like. Not a big fan of it. I'm not going to really kind of spoil what it is. They do give you like a full picture of what it is at the very, very end. And it's just not doing it for me. I don't know. And the art is okay. The gore is there, but I just don't like kind of the way it's drawn. I'm not a big fan of the art, and the monster itself is not great. It's kind of like a mix between like a face hugger from Alien and like a spider, but it's like gigantic at the same time. And we don't really know much about it. We don't know why or how or anything about why this is actually happening. So I don't know. I have the next couple issues ordered. I hope it does more of giving us characters to care about, and kind of maybe explaining what to do. And then what the heck do you even do to get around this? We have some military parts in here. We have like a secret meeting that happens. And the military is like, let's just go in there and if it's a portal, we'll go through and blow everybody up. It's like, okay, that's a stereotypical thing for any kind of military involvement. You know what I mean? Let's just go in there and nuke it. Okay, sure. So we'll see. We'll see what issue number 2 brings. Aftershock, Out of Body issue number 4, another Peter Milligan book. This is 2 Peter Milligan books in a row. Both I don't like that much. And I think this is only a 5-issue series. And so I'm kind of glad to see this one go, because I thought the first issue and the first couple issues, maybe it was an interesting premise. Basically, this guy is at a bar with his friend, and he leaves and he's attacked. He kind of wakes up in his subconscious, and he's in the ICU on a ventilator, and he's unresponsive, and he kind of finds himself drugged from a previous colleague, a colleague of his, with a psychedelic drug, and it kind of makes him astral project. Well, he's found by a medium who teaches him kind of the ways of astral projection. How long can you be out? How can you invade somebody else's body? And so all that to kind of figure out who did this to him, who tried to kill him. Was it a jealous ex or a jealous somebody in his life, a colleague, whoever. And so we've been kind of trying to figure out who's been doing this whole time. But we have this weird villain on the side who apparently is trying to take on strong souls to kind of regenerate his own body. But he's kind of got a weird little henchman that kind of does the dirty work for him and stuff like that. It's just a really weird story. It's going in too many directions. It's like part of the story is trying to figure out who killed him or who tried to kill him. And the other part of the story is like these fighting mediums, like this dark guy with his weird henchman and this girl who used to work with them, but found out he's kind of a scumbag. And so it's them kind of battling, and he's thrown into the mix, trying to save his soul, right? Is she going to be able to help save his soul? Is this guy going to consume it? That's kind of the story right here. So it's just really been 4 issues of the same thing over and over and over again. You know, let me invade this body. Well, no, maybe it's not this person that did it. Well, who else could have done it? Maybe it's this guy. And then while he's out there floating around trying to get people, trying to get information from people, you have this evil medium trying to like pull him in and trap him all the time. And it's just the same thing over and over. And there's only 1 issue left. I don't feel like there's much progression between issue 2, 3, and 4 yet. And I don't even know how they're going to wrap it up. So number one, I think there's only 5 issues in this book. And if there is, I'm kind of sad, but happy at the same time because I haven't totally been loving this book yet. And I think it's only 1 more issue. So we'll see if they can pull it together. We'll see if they can pull it together and actually make issue number 5 worth it to read the whole thing. But Out of Body, cool concept. I just don't think it's been delivering that much. Okay, so that's it for Aftershock. Going into Image, we have a few Image books here. We have Department of Truth, which is probably the coolest cover that I've seen in a long time. That fake moon landing with the Department of Truth, come on. That's freaking perfect. Freaking perfect. And then on the back, it has like names crossed out and stuff. It's just little things like that, the detail I really, really like. So this book, we are on issue number 13. So let me know if you guys are getting kind of like overdosed on this book a little bit. It's so high concept and it's so conspiracy theory, and there's a lot of dialogue, and so Hawk is in this book. Hawk is this guy who's been in the department for a long time. He's kind of like he does a lot of the dirty work, I think he would say. And so he hunts down manifestations that have become too real. He takes care of people who are on the wrong side of creating these manifestations, things like that. So he's kind of gotten his hands dirty his whole entire life. Well, he's kind of been dipping in and out of the department, working for the other order that's around too, that is in this game. And so he's been kind of manipulating our main character here since childbirth. And this is the issue about how the manipulation started. And where he kind of wants to pull the main character, which direction he wants to pull him. Does he want to go back to the Department of Truth? Does he want to go back to the other department? And so it's been very, very interesting, but I feel like it's really dialogue heavy in general. This whole story is, and it's like trying to be confusing for the sake of being confusing almost. They do a decent job. I mean, if you really sit down and focus and try to pay attention, the majority of these issues have so much dialogue and so much backstory that it really enriches the experience, but you don't remember any of it. You don't remember all these details and these timelines they walk you through. You remember the trippy art, and you kind of remember the main points. You remember where they're heading and where they went, and maybe how it's all compiling in the background. There's so much information in these issues. It's really hard to reconcile all the backstory, all the points that Hawk's trying to make, right? And so it's just hard to kind of follow these issues and have them stack on top of each other and completely understand the direction they're trying to go. I hope that makes sense. The art's crazy. The coloring is beautiful. I love the sketchiness. I love the vagueness. I love the horror aspect of this whole thing. But I think we need some issues where we either have to tone down the dialogue in here a little bit to make it more readable, I think, to make it more understood, and perhaps maybe kind of give more context on where we're headed, or perhaps that's supposed to be a confusing thing until the moment it happens. I don't know what I need. I need more clarity in this book. I don't know how to stack all the things we learn on top of each other, every single issue, and then process it and make it make sense in my mind. And so, it's very hard to describe. It's a very dense book, very, very dense book. So if you've been following along completely and you have a great memory of all these examples that all these characters talk through about the history of everything, then awesome. But if you're somebody who's a casual comic reader and you're reading this book, I think you're going to have a hard time trying to stack all these points on top of each other and really follow the story. So, be that as it may, it's a very, very good read. It's a heavy read. So if you have a couple other light books in your load, you can probably read this one and be fine. Department of Truth, James Tynion, Martin Simmons, some of the best in the field right now. Okay, 2 more books. We have Echolands issue number 2. I think I'm just going to hold it like this. This is Echolands. This is the cool, ta-da, this kind of a comic. So, Echolands number 1 made quite an impact on people when it came out last month. It was a book that not a lot of people talked about until probably the week it was coming out. And then I think a lot of people picked it up and were kind of blown away by the art and the style and the novelty of a side, like full page, full spread comic, because we don't really see that very often. And I'm trying to find a good representation of what I'm talking about. So you have this whole panel here you just read from left to right. And so it's all connecting, and a lot of the artwork kind of flows in between everything, right? So there's no like traditional paneling, and you read it from side to side, which is a cool concept. I think you lose a little bit when you do something like this, but you gain enough to where it's pretty interesting. So we have our main character, who's like a Little Red Riding Hood archetype. She's stolen some kind of a gem from some important people, and now they are on the hunt, right? They're trying to track her down. We get a little bit more acquainted with this girl and the faction she kind of runs with. Maybe some past lovers, some people that love to hate her, some people that just straight up hate her. And so this is basically a chase issue. We have our villain trying to chase down our hero, and we get some more interaction with the friends that she kind of hangs out with. So we get a little bit more acquainted with them. Of course, there's a variety of different characters here, and if you look at them and spend enough time, you can kind of say, well, this character resembles this other character in another story I've read somewhere. We got our stereotypical like vampire, we got our Chicago gangster kind of a guy, who looks like the guy from Dick Tracy. I forget what his name is. I want to say like Hammerhead, but I don't think that's right. Trying to remember. We have like our elven girl who's reminding me of like Lord of the Rings. We have all these different kinds of characters. So I think that was the point. I haven't taken my time to really kind of identify all the different ones, but it was a fairly interesting issue. I think it's going places. There's lots of action. There's lots of tracing the action from panel to panel because it is such a wide spread and everything is connecting. So it's really fun to do that. I think the art is really good. I think the color choices and the shadowing they do on the faces and the hair and stuff are interesting. Like the lips and the mouth. It almost reminds me of like Geiger's art in a way. So I kind of like that and don't like it at the same time. But I think it works for this book here. It's a really dark, kind of a gritty, kind of a raw book. So if you like those kinds of things, then great. It's a lot of mythology and everything. One gripe I have about it is that about a third of this comic is just kind of, editorial notes, advertisements, the Sounds of Creation 2, J.H. Williams III's music playlist while working on this chapter. So we get all this stuff. So if you're into those kinds of behind the scenes kinds of things, you're going to love it. You're going to love it. If you're just buying the comic to read a comic and you don't really care about the inner workings or the editorial stuff or the art or the writer questions and things like that, you're going to be disappointed that about a third of this book, hell, if not half the book, is just that. So, Echolands, not a bad read at all. And let me know if you bought the raw cut, something like that, version of issue number 1, because I want to know if there's additional content in there that adds story. Is it like a director's cut? So let me know down below if you read number 1 and then bought the raw cut and read that one. Let me know what the difference was. And what I might do is if my shop has both, I might flip through each and kind of do a panel by panel comparison and see how much additional content is in the raw cut. Because if there's, good stuff in the raw cut, then why are we buying these? Why don't we just wait for the raw cuts if they're going to give us one for each issue? So, I don't know, something to think about. Our last book here is Crossover issue number 8 from Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw. This was an interesting book. We haven't had one in a little bit, and Chip Zdarsky did the last issue, which I think everyone quite enjoyed. That was actually referenced in the beginning of this book. Donnie here says, yeah, sorry about the whole Chip Zdarsky thing. That wasn't supposed to happen. And we talked about on his channel, on Pop Culture Philosopher's channel, the meaning of these first few pages over here. Was it maybe a time crunch kind of a thing? Did they throw that in there? Was it always part of the plan? It was an interesting conversation. I suggest you check it out over at Pop Culture Philosophers. So this issue here kind of catches us back up to our main character here, and the boy that she's bringing along right now. His father was the one who convinced him to burn down the comic book store in the very beginning of all this. So it's the altercation between those two and the two cops from Powers. And so they've kind of busted in. They're trying to secure the scene right here, and they kind of get the upper hand. So towards the middle of the book here, we do get a little more cameo appearance. We get another cameo appearance of the boy's father, who's really a bad dude. And I feel like we're about to learn a lot more about him. He seems like an overbearing religious father who's kind of like punishing the son as much as possible, manipulating him, getting him to do things he doesn't quite want to do. And so now he's in police custody, and now the boy is probably going to have to have some kind of altercation with him while he's there. So pretty interesting. Not a whole lot happens in this issue. The back of this issue is kind of full of more ads for crossover. So it's advertising its own book with a 2-page spread, and then we get a Stray Dogs and a Shadecraft. It was like an excuse to have a real short issue, and then we're going to go ahead and just plug as many things as we can. So we have Felix Comics, we got Image Classics, we have Do You Want More, Donnie, we have Devil's Advocates, all sorts of stuff. So we have about as many pages of advertisements in the back of this as we do of actual progression in the story, which I think is kind of disappointing. So this issue was really kind of just, I think it was rushed, just kind of thrown in there. And so I'm not quite sure, I hope we're going to get a full issue in issue number 9, because this was kind of like a half issue, if that. So, kind of disappointing, but that's what I picked up this week. So as we have been doing for the last few weeks now, if I had to pick up just a couple books, I'm going to go through these real quick and just tell you which ones that I would hit on for sure. So if I were you and I just only had to pick up a few books, I would definitely be getting Inferno from Hickman, especially if you love the House of X, Powers of X run and the main X-Men run over the last couple years. This seems like a must-buy. So Inferno is going to get you right back into that mood. Berserkers, I think, is doing just enough to get you interested in the character some more. Understanding his backstory, understanding his being, his reasoning for everything, just trying to understand the character. And there's a really cool element of gore thrown in there and action too. And they're using it as far as like a lot of flashback gore scenes, and then a lot of like present day gore as well, because he still uses a weapon. He's been a weapon his whole life. But this is cool because they're diving into his past and trying to understand him as a person. So I think they're doing a good job of balancing all that. So Berserker's really good too. And then, of course, Something is Killing the Children, issue number 20, learning how the initiation process works, learning more about this whole organization and how they're set up and who does what and where. This is a must as well, especially if you really like the Erica Slaughter character. And you get a little taste of House of Slaughter at the end, which is probably going to be great too. So those are the 3 that I would highly recommend. The other ones were kind of like, either they're not heading in the right direction, or they're fluff, or they're so dense that I don't quite know how to reconcile it yet. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite books of the week were, and let me know if you can clarify anything, any questions that I did bring up about these books. I would really, really, really appreciate it. As always, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, share if you haven't shared to anybody yet, and hit the bell notification for future videos. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the comments.